Good day and welcome to the walk-off, everybody. It is Tuesday, Mailbag Day, and I'm back.
And you're back. I was like, are we not
Yeah.
going to acknowledge that?
Oh, we're gonna
This
acknowledge it.
friendly
I'm so
face is back.
excited, man. Number one, I just want to give a little tip of the hat your way, buddy, because you did a great job on Friday. Solo, Adam flying solo,
Thank you, thank you. It was hard. It was
giving
scary.
his opinion on a 17-year, $500 million
I got a little hot
contract for
takey
Vladdy.
with it while you
Yeah,
were
you got a
gone.
little hot takey. I like it. And then just holding down the fort on long toss the last couple of weeks while I was off gallivanting around for comedy and attempting to see some spring training games, which just really backfired on me. But what do you do? Here we are,
jinxed it.
back at it.
We're back at it. Well, before we get to a mailbag, should we acknowledge the fact that today is officially
International
the new
Women's Day.
Oh, I was gonna say deadline for contract talks with the CBA, but yeah, International Women's Day. That's good too.
Yeah. Let's
So
get that out, ladies.
Let's get that out there.
Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah.
Thank you for all you
Tip
do.
of the hat. Yeah, no, it feels like we're just repeating ourselves because this is literally how we started last Tuesday's cast, buddy. Was saying, oh, there's a deadline. It's deadline day.
Right.
The MLB has put a firm, unmovable deadline that we'll never see again. And here we are 1 week later. Did you ever, or are you the type of parent that counts down when you're get over here right now?
You have to tell a count of 10 or whatever, right?
Yeah. 1,
No,
2, because that's what this feels like.
yeah.
this
No,
this feels
I've-
like the owners are like counting down. Get over here, sign this deal in 1, 2. Don't make me say it again. Don't make me say it. What did I say? 1, 2.
2.5.
2.5.
That's that midnight extension on Monday. That's the 2.5 count. No, I've never really done the countdown. I'm gonna let you in on a little parenting trick that I have done though. When my daughter was younger, I've definitely taken her grocery shopping, realized halfway through grocery shopping that I left my wallet in the car, and I have no way to pay for the groceries. So I've turned my mistake into a teachable moment. And what I would do is I would bait her into throwing a tantrum, right? And then once she threw said tantrum, I would say, that's it, we're going home. And I would abandon a shopping cart full of groceries because she's thrown the tantrum about not getting a cookie for the bakery or whatever. So
I like how you've spun this as something that has happened numerous times. You're like,
it's
oh,
happened
yes.
many times. Yeah, I've offered trips to Disneyland that then at the last minute, because of bad behavior, we've had to cancel. I mean, that's
Right.
been... I've never been able to afford to go to Disneyland. Who am I kidding? But, so
But
she
teachable
knows.
lessons last forever. Yes,
Yeah, she
that's
knows
right,
Dad's not afraid to pull the plug on something, no matter how fun or mundane it may be. So
Right.
she doesn't even make me count anymore. So hopefully she doesn't listen to this podcast.
You're the owners in this scenario.
I'm a monster. I'm a monster. Yeah,
No, but it should be interesting to see what happens today. I have no hope, but that is because I have learned from past experiences with this negotiations that getting your hopes up just causes mental anguish. So why would I do that?
Yeah.
However, it does seem like they are moving closer. The fact they did actually move that luxury tax up a little bit, it's the first movement we've seen on the owner's side of things with that. It was a big sticking point for the players. I'm not even I'm past even guessing at this point. Like, I don't know where you're at with this, but
Yeah, I mean, I just continue to think that the Baseball Players Association is focused all of their efforts in all the wrong directions. I think that raising the CBT is not where they need to be focusing their efforts. I think that
I agree.
That affects maybe 5 or 6 teams in all of baseball, and as a relation to that affects maybe 10 players a year.
And that's what I was just going to say. I'm curious even what you would think. I haven't even looked it up. Like, what do you think the number of players that actually affects is? What, like 5% of the players?
I think 5% is generous. We're talking
Yes.
1,200 players. What would 5% be? 60 players? Like, I guess maybe that's
Like the salary minimum and a healthy floor tax would be the way to go, in my opinion.
yeah. I
Like
think I
we're
think
gonna get into this because
yeah.
there's more comments.
We
on
got a
this.
couple comments or questions about that. But yeah, having increasing the ceiling really only puts more money in the pockets of guys like Garrett Cole and Carlos Correa, guys who are at the top and want more bigger. I mean, really, it puts more money in
The guys who are already getting the big money.
and
Like,
the
let's look at,
agents, right?
right?
We
Yeah, and the
criticize Scott
agents.
Boras all the time. He's focusing a lot of his efforts on Carlos Correa, not spending so much time focused on, guys at the bottom, right? So there is definitely a little bit of manipulation from the agents here, not necessarily looking out for the everyman, so to speak, as much as they'd like to have you believe that is the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, get the league minimum up. That's I think like 20% of players get a salary floor introduced, where the Pirates can't just spend 13 million on payroll, right?
Yeah.
Like get that up to like 50 or 60 million, right? So you got Baltimore Orioles have to spend a little bit. I think those are better ideas, but I mean it's
Personally,
a
I
less
really
sexy
do
topic.
believe a $60 million floor would solve so many problems in this league for the players. It would create so much more work for these guys who sometimes just get forgotten about or wind up as relegated as bench players and needing to take 1-year deals that truly do deserve an everyday spot on a team for 2-3 years. And Dalton Simmons is a great example of this, right? A guy who he isn't that elite shortstop. He's going to be an everyday guy, but he's going to need to take another 1-year, 2-year deal, which he is kind of just. He's been kind of like the Mike Moustakas of shortstops, right? Where it's just like Moustakas had to take so many 1-year and 2-year deals there. Yeah. He seemed like a top guy after that 2015 World Series win, and then had to prove himself time and time again. Of course, the Brewers, kings of taking advantage of that type of player, did. And
well, and then I mean, I remember back in the day, this was kind of criticized in the NHL. The Florida Panthers were pretty famous for their what do they call it? Salary cap loopholes, right? Where a team like Vancouver would sign Roberto Luongo to like a 10-year deal. They'd front load all the money in the first 2 or 3 years, right? So that bring that average salary cap hit down, and then by the end of his contract, you trade him off to Florida. So they're only paying. $1 million a year over the next 5 years, but the cap hit brings them up to that necessary salary cap floor, right? Yeah. So the cap hit is still $5 million a year, but they're only having to pay $1 million out of pocket. I mean, I think the NHL is kind of criticized for that, but I think that would be great if the Yankees want to give Carlos Correa $45 million a year over the next 3 years, but then have it split up over 10. Why not, right? Send him down to Cleveland or Pittsburgh, and they can get a discount on Carlos Correa. He still gets his money. It brings them up to the cap floor. I don't know.
Definitely depends on management. I mean, the Los Angeles Angels might wind up just backloading that thing and winding up in a pool hole scenario, right? So, you never know.
Man, it is Mailbag. We have so many questions to get to. We should save the rest of this banter. We just miss each other. This is all this is.
We're do, yes, absolutely. We're just catching up now, yeah. It is a beefy mailbag, and big, again, Adam, great job on your end. This is a lot of the comments on your stuff you've done in the last week here. Big thank you to everyone out there who has been so interactive the last week. I know we were talking about this before we even hit record. It just, our comments had gone down. Our views didn't. You guys are still watching everything. The diehards out there who just need baseball content are still watching, but our comments went down and we were worried about it. And
you know what it is,
right
Scott?
back up.
You know what it is? More people are joining our Discord. So they're not commenting on YouTube. They're going straight to Discord and they're going, hey, and then they're commenting on the video they just watched, which is great.
100%.
We love the interaction, but it does kind of kill our algorithm. So just appreciate everybody in any capacity that you're participating, whether it is commenting on YouTube or in Discord or anything like that.
And we have had a lot of interaction on Twitter as well. You can follow us there at Walk Off Podcast and on Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast. Long toss has been great. Love having Craig and Joel on this, but let's get into this because it is a beefy mailbag. This is going to wind up being an hour episode. I can already tell.
This is going to be a full hour for sure. This will be longer than long toss. So the first comment is about long toss. This comes from Scott McCutcheon on this past Sunday. He says, I just love this whole concept for a show and the participation of other content creators coming together. I don't have TikTok personally, and I haven't planned on checking it out. But Hey Commie and Craig Ballard's participation in this have me seriously reconsidering it. Just because I appreciate their contributions and I want to check out their content as well. I just feel like all of us Blue Jays fans and specifically content creators coming together and supporting a shared community feeling is just where all the good feels are at. So couldn't agree more.
What a lovely comment. And I do wish to just kind of, give a little shine the spotlight on Craig and Joel for a second here because they're rock stars. And if you guys aren't checking out their content, you really should. Hey Commie, Craig Ballard on TikTok. Just the knowledge in those gentlemen's brains on baseball in general, it's just a joy to get a insight to.
The last 2 weeks not having you on long toss and it being where we're at in the lockout and it's been slow and there hasn't been a whole lot of news. The goal was to have a show that was, roughly 2 hours, but I went into both of the last 2 Sundays going, I don't know how we're going to get an hour out of this. We don't have much to talk about, but Joel and Craig are just both such gems that once we get talking, it's so easy to do. So, and
I know I watched Sundays and it was so fun. Chris Beck too. What a fun dude.
Yeah.
Man, I actually love the idea of a Gabriel Moreno, Chris Beck tandem in the next few years.
Right?
Like Beck is a guy who has worked his ass off to get to where he is. He has been handed nothing in his professional career and continues to move up the ranks. So all the best to him. I hope we can have him on long toss in a couple of years. We're mentioning him as your backup catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's pivot now to, I guess you mentioned it right off the top, my video on Friday where I kind of brought up the 17-year, $500 million offer for Vladdy. I feel really strongly about that. I know it's kind of a hot take. I really feel like, I know it's crazy, but I still feel like it's somewhat reasonable. It's based in reality.
I love it. And honestly, I don't know why I have this image of you like in a laboratory with goggles on and you're like a little bit of here and opt out here. We give it a shake.
Oh man, it's pretty close to what it was. Anyway, so a couple comments on both sides. This first one's from Scott on YouTube. Says, great analysis, Adam. Would love to see more of these types of videos in the future. #mailbag. So he's figured out the algorithm still. Good job there, Scott.
More videos with less Scott, he says. More Adam-only videos.
Man. When I was reading this comment, it stressed me out, the thought of because I had to put in so much work. I'm like, I'm not going to have Scott this week. He usually carries it. You should see every morning on Friday, Scott sends me the show notes of all the things we're going to talk about. And you guys don't appreciate how much work Scott puts in, like behind the scenes, like really comes up with a thorough list of talking points, detailed stuff, right? So for the first time, really all that burden was placed squarely on my shoulders. I usually just have to worry that our microphones are both on, and I don't even do that half the time. So it was fun. It was a good challenge, but man, it was exhausting, and I sure as hell don't want to do any more of that. So Scott, never leave me, please.
No, but you did do a great job of deep diving into the what ifs of that contract and how it might work if something that huge did happen. Well done, man.
Well, I will just say, I know I've shouted out this other podcast in the past, but the Nothing Personal podcast with David Sampson, who is the former president of the Miami Marlins, was involved in the Montreal Expos organization way back in the day. He has a great podcast, Monday to Friday. It's 45 minutes. It's phenomenal, real actual insider. I got my inspiration for this Vladdy talk from an episode I was listening to last week where he really went in on Juan Soto. It was just after Juan Soto, the news came out that he turned down the Nationals offer of $350 over 13 years. So he really did the explanation on why, of course, he would turn down an offer like that, and went into all the arbitration dollars. And, when you look at it from a perspective of arbitration, he's going to get that anyways, and just what an extension would be, that's when I thought, well, how can we apply this to Vladdy? So a lot of credit to David Sampson, even though he's never going to hear this. I think that was, it's good to give credit where credit is due, and I definitely didn't just pull that analysis out of thin air. So next comment, though, on that same video comes from Marcus, who says, I don't think Vlad is going to be the first player to break the Hayload $500 million mark, regardless of amortization period. So nice big word, amortization. I don't know if this means, and Scott, maybe you can help me interpret this. Do you think that means that Vlad is not going to make 500 and that someone else will after him? Or do you think that means Marcus believes someone else will be at 500 million before Vlad?
So I interpreted it as Marcus means someone is going to pull it off before Vlad, maybe a Juan Soto. However, he could just mean not until this isn't the group of players that's going to pull it off. I know when we talked to Scotty Mitchell from TSN, that was one thing he brought up when we kind of tossed out the idea of who do you think the first $500 million guy is going to be? And his answer was truly nobody playing baseball right now.
Right.
So we'll see. It's a lot of money. Like, let's be serious.
It is a big commitment, too.
And it's a big commitment with years. It's a big commitment for the team. And the ownership does have the most to lose in a scenario like this, especially with baseball having guaranteed contracts, right? Like, if there's an injury or a decline in play, this isn't the NFL where you can just like, oh, your contract's void, right? So,
right. Yeah. Well, when I spoke on Long Toss, we kind of got into it at depth there with Craig and Joel. And Craig is a strong believer that Vladdy is going to be a 2-contract player. He compared it to Alex Rodriguez. So he thinks what Craig believes is maybe a 7-year deal in the 250 million range.
Take him to 29.
Take him to 29, and then still have a chance for one more.
Still have that monster 10-year deal. Yeah, absolutely. Which is probably the smartest way to go, because if you look at the breakdown, right, you probably need to sign Vladdy 7 years, 250 to 300 mil. Yeah. Let's say 250. Sure. And then let's say he still gets 10 years, 300. He's still at 550, which is more than if he just locked in 17 years, 500 million. So,
last comment on this topic from YouTube comes from Ontario Now, who says, I think 400 million over 14 is very realistic, but Jays would never do 500 million for 17. Why would you pay elite numbers after the age 36 season? I think 14 a year contract is good enough. The whole point of my video was not what's a good deal for the Blue Jays.
That's
the point
a good
is,
point. In fact,
what brings
why don't we
both
just get
sides together and where both parties could agree they benefit?
I mean, 400 million over 14 years is a great deal for the Blue Jays, and if the Jays can get that, they better sign it tomorrow. Because in the end, that's going to work out. But you were talking comparables right before we hit record, so let's just get into the comparables, because you made some really good points here.
Well, I just want to address, I don't think Vladdy signs any deal that ends with him hitting free agency at the age 36, unless he plans on retiring at the age 36.
Yeah.
Because the deal that he gets offered going into his age 37 season is going to be nickels, right? 5 million a year at that point, right? Like, he's not a pitcher who's going to age well with time. He's a guy who's going to, if anything, lose power. That's the whole point of not giving him those extra 3 years, right? Is because he's going to be in decline.
Let's paint a best case scenario. Age 36, he continues to be healthy. He's had an amazing career, best shape of his career.
Sure.
he pulls off a Jose Batista in year 36, which if you look at Jose's age 36, that was 2015. Maybe it was 2016. No, it was 2015 when he had the big 40 home runs, and they were talking about what it would take to re-sign him, and he was giving out these numbers like 150 million, and they still re-upped on him even though he had that injury-plagued 2016 season. They re-upped on him on a 1-year $17 million deal. So maybe there is something like that, but once you hit 36, no one's investing years in you, right? Mm-hmm. They may invest Nelson Cruz money, right? Nelson Cruz is a guy who's he's a behemoth when it comes to hitting bombs, right?
Yeah.
Has for years, but it's 1-year deal after 1-year deal. He's not getting any long-term contracts.
No. So the comparables now. Let's go to comparables. Why would you pay anyone for elite value after their age 36 season? So here's 5 examples. Mike Trout signed a 12-year deal when he was 27 years old. So a contract that takes him through age 39, $35 million a year. Right? That's Mike Trout, best player of the game. Got it.
Biggest contract out there.
Mookie Betts, same thing. 12-year contract at age 27, takes him to 39, $30 million a year. Bryce Harper, 13-year deal at age 26, $25 million
39.
a year. Right? 39. Giancarlo Stanton, 13-year contract at age 25, takes him to year 38, $25 million a year. Garrett Cole, 9-year deal at age 29, $36 million a year. That's why. If you want a guy who's going to produce for you today, you have to pay him for tomorrow.
Because this is what Vlad's age. This is what Vlad's agent is going to be bringing up, right? These are the comparables that he's going to be saying. So he's going to sit down for this mega monster deal and be like, listen, there's no way we're even talking unless we get those last 3 years out of you after age 36.
Yeah.
We know they're dead years.
But if you want the good years, you've got to pay him into retirement, right? And if you don't want to do that, I mean, as much as we all know he's a villain in baseball and in society at this point, the alternative is Trevor Bauer's contract.
Yeah.
Where you go, okay, we're gonna do a short-term deal, but we are gonna pay an absurd annual average value, right? Trevor Bauer was $42 million a year was the deal.
Yeah. Max Scherzer.
So
more recent example of that. Absolutely. Yeah. Those are your options. If you're going to
do short-term with Vladdy, I think you're in the 45 to 50 million a year. If you want to do smaller annual average value, I think you've got to go for a ridiculous length of time. You got to pay for those bad years.
I think Craig might be right, though. I think he may be a 2-contract guy. But
yeah, absolutely.
Time will tell.
Possibility for that. And just to give myself credit, I did include that when I gave the Blue Jays an opt-out after year 7. That was the point of that. Was that. All right, so let's move on from that. Enough of that. This one comes from Twitter. So Brant Jays fan 49 DM'd us on Twitter and said, are there any Blue Jays you think could go overseas now that there is a delay? My first thought is Kevin Biggio. Needs to have a great year this year to solidify his place on the Jays. So maybe he goes overseas to get quality at-bats because a slow start on the Jays would be the end of his career with this team, I think. So we did see a few guys. I mean, Bryce Harper notably kind of was making some wink, nod, nods over there towards Japan. Like, hey, you've got Scott Boris's number. Give me a call, right? I don't know if that was just posturing, if he has any intention of going, but
Hyun-Jin Ryu is in Korea right now in the KBO. I mean, he's just participating in their spring training currently. However, I think that is a real possibility. I think it's going to take, well, number one, we're going to need to wait and see where today goes.
Yep.
So if today passes and they're still at a huge impasse because right now the players are giving in more than they probably wanted to because they would like to play 162 games. So if they can get a deal completed today, that 162 games is still on the table. Adam, you kind of brought this up before we hit record, but that would probably put the start of the season April 15th, Jackie Robinson Day. There would be some double headers included throughout the season to make up those games. However, the players would be paid their full salary. Now, if this deadline come and goes again, we'll talk about the new deadline next Tuesday on the Mailbag. No. When the owners actually get to 3 and they count down to 3, right? I think there's going to be a serious impasse where everyone's just like, okay, well, if we're losing games, we're losing games. Who cares at this point? Let's get the best deal we can. Mm-hmm. And if that happens, I do think it is possible that we see some guys go over in these international leagues and play some baseball. We'll see. Biggio is an interesting idea. I get where he's coming from. It's a really good point. Biggio had such a down year last year, struggled with injuries. His plate discipline seemed to disappear. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it's so wild to think of anybody going over there. I think if anybody does, that is a bad sign for how this CBA is going. Like, if anybody of any substance, of any superstar quality goes to Japan, I don't think they do it because they're just trying to stay in game shape for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I think at that point, that's a sign that, like, no, they're there for the year, and that's because they don't think baseball is going to happen this year. So
yeah.
I'll just say I hope we don't see it.
Yes.
Right?
But
it is a big move to just move over there and play, a couple weeks and then come back. Like,
great comment, though.
Yeah, great.
And again,
great
we really do appreciate all the interaction on Twitter. It's been great. So, great question.
Next one comes from Vlad's Gonna Smash. Says,
oh, yeah. Another Twitter comment.
Asking for our opinion on this tweet from John Hyman, who says, the low-revenue Tampa Bay Rays made superstar Freddie Freeman an offer before the lockout. Yankees very interested. Jays, Dodgers, others could fit. It's a surprise the Braves didn't lock him up before the lockout. They remain in the mix as well. So what do you think, Scott? Is this substance to this tweet?
John Heyman's got to be the king of putting stuff out that has already been put out but rewording it, right? Like, I don't know if I've seen anyone do it as much as Heyman. I like John Heyman, by the way, but man, this is all news we already knew. The Tampa Bay Rays wrinkle is new. I hadn't heard that before. However, I do think when you look at the way that they set up Wander Franco's contract, I think you can see what the Rays are doing, which is they're trying to give themselves this 4-year window, and then maybe they're stripping right down again. Because all of a sudden Wander Franco's salary goes from like $15 million a year to 26 or 27, something like that, after the first 4 years. That is totally where the Rays will trade him for a monster load of prospects and Rays players. So could we see a scenario where Freddie Freeman takes a $30 million contract from the Rays for 1 year? Maybe, but it seems pretty unlikely to me. Teams can make offers and the players and the agent just be like, yeah, okay. Thank you. We'll consider it. Like,
yeah, I mean, this feels like a non-news tweet. Like, this just feels like I have nothing else to talk about. I want to put something out there that is who's gonna which side of this is going to dispute this tweet, right? Is Freddie Freeman's agent going to be like, no, that's like one less team who's bidding? Of course not, right? It does nothing but looks good for Freddie Freeman, especially if he's going to the Yankees to negotiate, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the Yankees are going to be intimidated. Oh, we don't want Freddie Freeman with the Rays. They're
Yeah.
already the favorites to win the division, right? So it just
Yeah.
ups his price with every other team, anyways. And the Rays are going to come out and deny it? Like, of course not, right? So
Feels
like
like
this could just be a
content, not
total
substance. Yeah.
total bullshit tweet. Like I could make the same tweet about anything. Tampa Bay
Yeah.
Rays offered a mega deal to Carlos Correa. Who's going to deny that,
Yeah.
right? Like
No, it's a safe.
I-
it's a safe. It's a
it's
safe,
a safe thing that's going to get
content
retweeted and
tweet. Yeah.
yeah. So especially when things are slow, you got to stay in the cycle, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. My
I mean,
biggest
here we
thing,
are talking about a tweet that,
right? Exactly.
you know, like
So,
we're
this is exactly what he wanted. He wanted the walk off covering his stupid shit sandwich. My biggest thing though is that like I do agree that it's a surprise the Braves didn't lock him up before
Yes.
the lockout. I think that was
100%.
catastrophic. But who knows? We'll see. That's enough time for that whole non-news story here. Let's move to Discord now for a little bit. We did have the announcement of some potential rule changes. Now we're back to the universal DH thing, Scott, where this isn't it's not agreed to, right?
Yeah.
Like until a CBA is signed, none of these are
anything.
I get sick of reading these tweets and these posts and these articles where it's like, oh yeah, it's official, universal DH next year. It's like, no, if the players made one offer saying that like, hey, we're willing to budge on this thing that the owners want, that doesn't mean they've agreed to it because everything comes with strings attached, right? The players have just said, look, we're open to these rule change options that we know the owners want, but in order to do that, we need the CBT to go up. We need minimum salaries going up. We need whatever. It's the same with the expanded playoffs. It's the same with everything, right? So it does get a little tiresome just to even read about like, it's official, we're doing bigger bases this year. It's official, we're doing like, no, we're not. Like maybe, sure, right? Like we're one step closer to it happening, but
Until a new CBA is signed, the I's dotted and the T's crossed, you're 100% right. This is all just hearsay. So
it's all just fun speculation. So I don't have a problem with talking about it. We can talk about it. Let's get into it. But let's not pretend like this is agreed to, right? Like, I don't know. Anyway, so first issue to talk about is the pitch clock. The league wants to implement a pitch clock of, 14 seconds between pitch, or a 14-second pitch clock with no runners on, and a 19-second pitch clock when runners are on the base. So according to friend of the show, Joel, he's done the research. I trust him. He says average time between pitches was 25 seconds last year.
wow.
So that is we're shaving 10 seconds off. Chris Beck didn't like it when we talked with him on Long Toss, obviously catcher in the Jays organization. Hates the idea. Before we get to this comment, where do you stand on a pitch clock? You think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you not give a shit?
I don't really care personally. I know that they have implemented this in some of the minor leagues throughout the years to test it out. I know they've done this in the Atlantic League, which is the guinea pig for everything, it seems like. We've talked to guys who have pitched on a pitch clock, and they say you get used to it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything that's going to change the game all that much. Personally, man, I don't think that baseball's problem is that the games are 3 hours and 10 minutes. I mean, you shave 15 minutes off, and they're 2 hours and 55 minutes. Like, is this going to attract more fans? I don't know. I don't think it is, personally. I don't think that's the problem with baseball. But also, I'm a diehard baseball fan that is literally still putting out 3 to 4 podcast segments a week during a lockout. So what the hell do I know? Like, I'm in too deep, Adam.
We're both in too deep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're done for. Like, of course we love baseball. Like,
So
I don't know.
We did get some fun comments here in our Discord. So SCTI posted a fun little meme.
I love this.
For the league's pitch clock, and it's just in the background where the pitch clock would be, it's just a picture of Samuel L. Jackson saying "TikTok, motherfucker." So that's really good. And then got another comment here from Mustard Tiger. I personally think the greatest pitch clock would just be a series of memes that started out passive aggressive and just got more aggressive every few seconds. So,
see, this is literally a great example of our Discord. By the way, it's just a bunch of us,
fucking around and having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, there is a link. Discord's always free. Feel free to join. We always welcome new members.
So then this came in about the pitch clock from Twitter. Now, I'm not on Twitter. You do the Twitter. I do the Instagram. But sometimes on Instagram, I get screenshots of tweets in my feed. So this one wasn't really sent to me, but it came across me through the feed. So this is from the Twitter user at JJCoop36. Says, if we're talking about the pitch clock, I will note once again that this has been in the MLB rulebook for years. It actually mandates that a pitcher deliver a pitch within 12 seconds if the bases are empty. He cites Rule 507C, and sure enough, I looked it up myself. I put it in the old Google machine.
Did the research.
I did the research, so this isn't just total bullshit here. But yeah, sure enough, Rule 507C, and you can look it up yourself right on MLB.com, states that when the bases are unoccupied, the pitcher shall deliver the ball to the batter within 12 seconds after he receives the ball. Each time the pitcher delays the game by violating this rule, the umpire shall call a ball. The 12-second timing starts when the pitcher is in possession of the ball and the batter is in the box. Alert to the pitcher. The timing stops when the pitcher releases the ball. So, I mean,
if Joel is correct, and it is actually 25 seconds between pitches, then every pitcher on average is more than doubling the time that is allotted, which is hilarious. This is the sticky stuff all over again, right? Like, well, and that's in the rule book.
That's a good reference too with the sticky stuff, because that is something that we saw last year where, the union, the players, and the owners have to agree to any new rule changes. So what kind of went awry last year is that the MLB didn't make a new rule on banning sticky stuff. It was a rule that had already existed, and they just started enforcing it, right?
And so that's why we saw it implemented in the middle of the season.
Right? With like no notice. It was like 2 weeks notice. Hey, here's your deadline. I'm going to give you to the count of 3. Stop putting sticky stuff on the ball. And so, I mean,
and then we saw Tyler Chatwood explode in the Blue Jays bullpen after that.
Brutal. So it is interesting to note that there already is a pitch clock. I guess maybe the difference being there isn't a physical clock, but there is a 12-second time limit. So if MLB really wants to implement it, then they've already got the door open for them to enforce it. So
this is a rule, by the way, Rafael Dolis had no idea about. Zero clue.
All right, next one comes. This is again just about rule changes. So this comes from Widgets on YouTube. Says a line drive into the gap being caught gets really boring. Limiting the shift or banning the shift allows for more offense and cooler defensive plays. So what do you think about banning the shift? Good, bad? Is it necessary? Is it just how you feeling with the shift, Scott?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on it. I do have a strong opinion about how much I dislike Joey Gallo, and I hate that they're legislating him into being a good player. Like, can we just let these guys who can't adjust just fall to the wayside? And all of this outpouring of people who are like, it's not as easy as just hitting it the other way. It's like, no shit. I'm well aware of how difficult hitting a baseball is, but why are some guys able to adjust and some guys aren't? Because that's baseball.
Yeah.
It's a game of adjustments. And if you can't adjust, why are we going to change the rules so you can? Like, it just seems silly to me. But honestly, if they do ban the shift, I think we talked about this with Scotty Mitchell from TSN, right? And he kind of mentioned the same thing. If they do ban the shift, like I'm not for banning the shift, but if they do, within about 6 months, I won't even care, right? Like it's not going to be something where I'm like,
I couldn't agree more. As far as the shift goes, I don't think baseball's problem is good defense when the ball is in play. I think the problem with baseball is strikeouts are up and home runs are up and walks are up. And that's all that people, or all that
3 outcomes.
Hitters, the 3 true outcomes, right? Just to go back to hockey for an analogy, do you remember back in like the early 2000s when the Minnesota Wild were really like, I guess, going to the Stanley Cup Finals and stuff, running this neutral zone trap, and like offense was down.
Of course I do.
And
the Calgary Flames went to the Stanley Cup Final in 2004, all based on the trap, 100%.
So
horrible hockey to watch, but as a Flames fan, when you're a fan of the team doing it and doing it well, you love it. Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? So the problem with that era of hockey was that goals were down, right? I mean, that's the macrocosm of what was happening. Was scoring was down. They wanted to get scoring back up. And just like baseball talking now about like, well, we're going to move the mound back 2 feet. We're going to do that. Like all these drastic changes. The NHL was talking about, we're going to do bigger hockey nets, right? We're going to do posts that don't go straight down. They go kind of out on a curve. Like there was so many proposals for weird new hockey nets. I'm so glad they didn't do it, right? They did other
because
rule
what
changes
did they
to
wind up
tweak it.
doing? What they wound up doing was enforcing the rules they already had in place, right?
Yes. So my point though, Scott, is that when I'm watching a hockey game, I don't give a flying fuck if the ending score of the game is 2-1 or 7-5. What I do care about is scoring chances and shots on goal.
Yes.
Right? If the shots are 45-38, but it's a 2-1 game, that was probably a good fucking game we just watched. Right? A lot of opportunities. The goalies played great. Phenomenal. Right? And I think that's kind of where baseball needs to apply it. 100%. Right? Is like, I don't care how many runs are scored or like defensive shift this or defensive shift that, like,
but give me action.
Give me action. Put the ball in play. Like, let's see guys making diving catches. Let's see guys turning double plays. I don't fucking care about strikeouts.
Maybe banning the shift is the way to go. If that's, like maybe that will put the ball in play more often. Maybe that will create more excitement on the defensive end of things. And I just
want more baseball plays. I don't care what kind they are, whether it's a line drive or a pop fly or a home run, occasional strikeout. I don't care if Jacob deGrom throws a perfect game. Like, those are all awesome moments. I don't need to see 6 perfect games a month. Like, I don't, right? So, I don't know.
I know I saw something really interesting here that actually, you know what? I'll just pull it up because I think I got it here. Yeah, there it is. So these players are the guys who are shifted the most last season, percentage by plate appearances. Okay. So Carlos Santana with the Kansas City Royals was shifted the most. Team shifted on him 97.6% of the time. Okay. Jose Ramirez is the second most shifted at 96.4. Joey Gallo third at 95%. Now, if you look at Jose Ramirez's numbers and you look at Joey Gallo's numbers, one of these guys is making adjustments and one of these guys is not, right? Like, we don't need to worry about Jose Ramirez. He's still one of the most elite players in all of baseball. He does not care if there is a shift. He makes it happen. Joey Gallo, on the other hand,
is going to hit as hard as he can at those 7 guys and hope it goes by one of them.
And hey, he's hitting. I mean, Gallo's going to put up 30 home runs plus.
Yeah,
like he
have a
does
batting
what he
average
does.
of nearly 200 plus as well. So
yeah, nearly.
Still better than I could do. So
I mean,
all right. Well, let's. We got a couple last comments here, and then
Okay.
anybody keeping an
We'll
eye on the
wrap it
pitch
up.
count here is saying TikTok motherfuckers to us as we approach the
Yeah.
45-minute mark on this mailbag episode. It's just good to have you back, Scott. So,
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way, man. I
all
just
right.
miss talking baseball, which is why this is getting so beefy, I'm sure. Yeah.
So next one comes from Danny Parker. Commented on, I believe, the long toss video, but said, "Look, I don't use Twitter or Discord or Instagram or any of that stuff. So I had to post this here, and I hope someone notices it and maybe comments on it in the coming days." Well, we got you, Danny. Here you are on the
Yes.
mailbag. Welcome. He says, "I subscribe to another YouTube channel that posts stuff from a New York City sports talk radio show with Michael Kay, and they had Randy Levine from the New York Yankees on today, and he had the nerve to cry poor that why they're not giving in to the players' requests for additional pay. He says, I just found it disgusting that any New York City sports team could cry poor, and then in the same breath mention that baseball is a $10 billion industry, not even mentioning the new deal owners are trying to negotiate with Apple or ESPN to show more games on TV. Go Players Go. I will be back to watch the players when the lockout is over. I will not be back to watch the owners." So, sums it up
Here,
pretty
here,
nicely
Danny.
there. Here, here.
Well
I think we
put.
can all agree with you there. He also linked to the interview in question. Appreciate that. So I didn't have to go look for it myself. So I did watch it. Randy Levine, or Levine, is the president of the New York Yankees. And in this interview, after being pressed... Okay, so this is not super related to Danny's question, but I did think this is worth talking about. So in that interview, Randy, after being pressed about the fact that not all teams want to win, and he acknowledged that tanking is an issue, Randy did say that in the first proposal for the CBA from the owners, like way back in December or whatever, that the owners did include a quote-unquote minimum payroll, so a salary floor, right? A salary cap floor. He did acknowledge that what the clubs offered was low, and that, the clubs offered a minimum payroll, but the union did not want to discuss it. He also acknowledged that it was, in fact, a very low number, but he said in defense, it was just our first offer, so you got to start low, which is true, not to take the side of the owners here, but I mean, you start low and you work into the middle. He said, but the union had no interest in even talking about a salary cap floor.
Well, I am very interested in hearing what that low number was, because let's be serious. If they floated a salary floor and there were a bunch of other concessions the players had to make, and this salary floor is, let's throw it out there, $35 million. So the only teams in baseball that affects is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Of course, the players are going to be like, pound sand. We're not going to give you concessions over something that doesn't affect anybody.
Yeah, I mean, very true, but also I think getting it in there at all would be valuable. Like, that might not be something that makes a difference this time, but if you can get a salary cap floor at all, even if it affected nobody, even if the salary cap floor was 20 million and literally everyone's paying above it anyways, right? If you as long as you didn't have to give up major concessions, right? And of course there's an asterisk there. But if you could just get it in there at all, then at least there's room for, 7 years down the road to get that number increased. But you're not going to get a salary floor on day one that's at 60 million. Right?
No.
Like, you're not going to get that.
No,
but I think
probably true. Yeah.
I think that is definitely...
And I mean, we talked about this off the top, right?
Yeah.
We think a salary floor and a
More
minimum
important
salary
than a
is
salary
much
ceiling.
more important than the actual luxury tax line. Yeah. But to each their own.
Absolutely. Anyways, thanks, Danny, for that one. Last one here. I know you're going to hate this one. I kind of love it, but I know that there's a lot of reasons I don't like it too. This one comes in from Scott Carter. Says, we should have a shorter season anyways. 100 games would be better, period. Every game is 1% of the season. They talk about the decline in baseball compared to football and basketball as if it is due to the product. This is not true. Football is the most successful sport because it's the easiest to gamble on. Your season is very simple, a limited number of games. You always have time every week to consider what you want to bet on, and people that bet on games will watch the games. If baseball went to 100, they could do 20-week seasons with 5-game series against one opponent every week. No games on Monday or Tuesday. It would be easier for casual fans to follow. Every game and every series would seem more important. Betting would skyrocket, and so would viewership. Lot to digest there.
Okay, so number one, you know me well, Adam. I hate that. I hate every second of that. I don't want less baseball. I don't like the idea of not being able to watch baseball on Mondays and Tuesdays. What would we do for our live stream?
Yeah.
I get what he's saying, and he is making some valid points, especially with the online betting and the gambling aspect of it. Yes, baseball is a more difficult sport to gamble on, and that is something that they are trying to fix currently. I don't want a 100-game season.
No, I don't either. But just to play devil's advocate, and I don't want a 100-game season either. But would the health of the sport benefit from it? Would quality go up? Would injuries go down? Right? We all talk about the grind of the game, and it's a beautiful thing, right? And if we could, the biggest reason not to shorten the season, right? Whether it's to 100 games or 140 games or even 150 games to make room for expanded playoffs, right? Is the records,
yes.
The entire record book is completely irrelevant now, right? You can't compare what someone did over 140 games, for their career to what someone did over 162, etc., right? And I know it hasn't been 162 since the start of time. I digress. There is, I think, value, though, in this next generation of fans who 162 4-hour games is a big commitment. And the audience for baseball is continuing to get older and older. And old people die. So they got to do something. I don't like 100 games.
No, and it's a good point, and it is something that needs to be addressed. I'm biased, right?
What if
I'm such a diehard, I don't...
Can we take that part, though, where he says 5 games a week, right? Nobody plays games on Monday or Tuesday. What if we just took that detail, still kept it 162 games, but we lined up all of the off days? Nobody plays on Monday.
It does allow fantasy owners and betting to be more focused.
Gives you that time to catch your breath, set your lineup,
Yeah.
Because that is one nice thing with football, right? Is you've got your weekend of games, and you tune in for the weekend, and then you get some time to make your trades for your rosters and this and that. And fantasy is such a huge thing obviously with baseball too, but it is there is no end. There is no chance to catch your breath. There is no I don't know. It would be kind of cool, even if it was 6 games a week, to go, hey, let's have a Monday morning look back at the week that just had. Week 2 is in the books. Here's where everybody stands, right? Everybody's played the same amount of games. Everybody's, got a comparable. It's really easy to do the record in football when you go, okay, this team is 6-7. This team is, 9-5 or whatever, and you go, okay, it's equal. And in baseball, you get into the middle of August and one team's played 8 games more than another team, right? It is it's an a lot of math
idea.
To do for the casual fan, right? So
it's an interesting idea. I say we leave it at that, but I would, if for all of you who have actually listened all the way to the end here, I would love to hear your comments on what you think about a shortened season. Something along the lines that, what was it, Scott Carter?
Scott Carter, yeah, hold on.
Hey, good job. Something like that he proposed. I'm curious because I feel I'm so biased it doesn't matter, right? I want 162 games. I would like to watch baseball every single day. I'm well aware the casual fan is not in the same headspace that I'm in. So I would love to hear what everyone has to say. Should we call it there?
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry,
I
buddy.
do just want to. The other thing, again, with a 5 games a week, Monday, Tuesday off, he had suggested you play the same. It's a 5 game series, so you play the Yankees all
Right.
5 games this week. That could also work if you did 6 games, right? Like we're doing 6 home games against the Yankees. We'll play them 3 weeks from now. We'll do another 6 games against the Yankees, but in our park versus their park.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be an interesting little, like, I don't know. There's something there. It's not a perfect solution, but I think there are some details to that idea that might actually be pretty cool.
Valid. For sure. All right.
All right.
Let's call it.
We almost did an hour. We fell 5 minutes short. So
Well, that's all right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening and tuning in as always. Really glad to be back and chatting baseball again. So thank you, Adam, for picking up the slack while I was off and gallivanting around, and really appreciate you putting in your work.
It's nice to have you back,
thank
Scott.
you to everyone who has hit subscribe, who has hit a like or a comment. It all helps, and especially on the audio side, I know that we have been getting more and more listens every single week, and we really appreciate that. So if you are listening and you haven't hit subscribe on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, it does really help our numbers, so please do that. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers.